Gas prices are the highest they have ever been and seem like they won't be coming down again. Coincidentally, oil companies are pulling record high profits and have been hardly investing that money in producing more oil. Suspicious? You bet your bucket it is. Hello people of the internet, I'm Nico, and today I'll be explaining why oil companies aren't bothered with lowering the oil prices. So first off, what happened? How did we end up here with these soaring gas prices? Well, the quick answer is a lot. Basically everything that has happened ever since we first started using oil has led up to this point. Everything from the Industrial Revolution to the COVID-19 pandemic and everything since then. But it was COVID that was the final straw. More on that in a minute. As we all know, oil is a finite resource. Eventually it will run out and then we'll have no choice but to go electric. Well, there's one more possibility, but you'll have to wait for my next video to find out, so subscribe and turn on notifications if you're interested. But as I was saying about oil being a finite resource, it is inevitable for the price to go up as the oil fields run dry. I'm not saying we're running out just yet. There's enough oil in the ground for many more years to come, but oil is still in short supply and there is a reason for this. My point about the price going up as the oil runs out is more that the ones who control the supply are the ones largely responsible for the price increase we see today. What instigated this though was COVID. I covered this more in my previous video, which I'll link below the like button if you're interested, but in that video I mentioned that oil producers have been slow to ramp up production again. Intentionally so. When COVID first hit, there was a significant drop in demand for oil, which is why the prices plummeted and even went negative temporarily. But the important thing to note is that because of the limited demand, the oil companies limited supply to balance the price and stay alive. So with massive layoffs in addition to limited production, the oil companies survived. Well, not the small privately owned businesses, but more on them in a sec. Now, despite that everything has mostly returned to normal, the oil companies haven't been rehiring their former employees, and they haven't been increasing production to meet the demand. But why? Well, first I want to backtrack to when the prices dropped in 2016. Around this time, the small privately owned oil producers that I mentioned earlier flooded the market with excess oil, and as a result, OPEC, that massive cartel of oil producing countries, lost its influence over the supply of oil and therefore to an extent the price. That is until COVID dropped the demand, causing oil producers to cut production, and with that many of the small oil companies went out of business. There were more reasons that caused them to fail, but COVID was a killer. Following the pandemic, demand increased again, and with most of the small oil companies wiped out, OPEC was able to regain its control over the oil market by intentionally keeping the supply lower than demand, which other oil companies are doing too. Now, as to why oil companies haven't been rehiring their employees and increasing supply to meet demand, well, here goes. Thanks to oil being a finite resource and the rise in renewable energy, faith in long-term success in oil is limited, a point which is proved as the energy sector of the S&P 500 was the lowest performing sector, staying basically flat with inflation. And so as a result, oil companies are under a lot of pressure from investors to produce results now. So while the high prices are also pushing for renewable energy to take over, oil companies are pulling record profits, and instead of reinvesting that money, it is instead being paid out to shareholders. A lot of that money would normally be used for making new oil rigs or for developing new land to be turned into oil fields, which they could do as the US Bureau of Land Management has approved over 9,000 unused permits for drilling. And of those 9,000 permits, just under 4,000 of them were approved in 2021 alone. So to anyone that still says that Biden is limiting oil production, you're wrong. Oil companies are simply unwilling to drill more, and as a result, their capital expenditures are at or near all-time lows. So while renewable energy is on the horizon, oil companies know it will take society time to shift over entirely, and they are capitalizing on this now. They know they won't win in the end, but as they bleed out, they still have the world by the throat, and they aren't letting go just yet. To find out what we can do to lower gas prices on our own, watch this video. And here is another video that YouTube recommends. Until next time, people of the internet, peace out.